The violence hit Colombia commemorates 4 years of the peace agreement signed by former FARC-EP guerrilla and the government. Russia's Sputnik-V COVID-19 vaccine developers said it is 95% effective, according to a second interim analysis of clinical trial data. Afghan president urged the international community to continue supporting Afghanistan in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. This Tuesday, Colombia commemorates 4 years of the peace agreement signature between the former FARC-EP guerrilla and the Colombian state under a persistent increase of assassination and massacres. The peace agreement, signed by the then President Juan Manuel Santos and the head of the now extinct FARC-EP Rodrigo Londoño, took place in the city of Bogotá after a wide national debate and the accompaniment of international organizations. However, the now former guerrillas denounced the non-compliance of the pact and the lack of security guarantees by the Colombian government. According to human rights organizations, to date, more than 200 former combatants and peace signatories have been assassinated since 2016. Human rights organizations also asserted that the violence intensified under Iván Duque's mandate. In this context, almost 300 social leaders have been murdered and over 77 massacres have been committed in 2020. Peru's new interim president, Francisco Sagasti, appointed a new commander of the police and ordered a reform on the institution in response to the violent repression of protesters under the short-lived previous government.
General Cesar Augusto Cervantes Cárdenas has been designated as the new commander of the Peruvian police. I have also decided to install a base commission. Its mission will be to recommend actions within 60 days to modernize and strengthen the Peruvian National Police. I want to reiterate my deep regret for the events that occurred in the citizen mobilizations, in which 2 young people lost their lives. Other citizens were injured, some of them seriously, and others were affected in their dignity during their detention.
And Brazilian police used tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse protesters marching against the death of a black man beaten to death by the white guards at a Carrefour supermarket. Several days of protests have erupted in Porto Alegre, southern Brazil, after video footage last week showed 40-year-old welder João Alberto Silveira Freitas being punched in the face and head by a security guard while another guard held him. Monday's march occupied the street and interrupted traffic in front of a Carrefour branch in the city. Carrefour has faced a wave of boycott calls and sometimes violent protests outside its stores across Brazil. This Tuesday's Ecuador National Assembly holds a political trial against Interior Minister Maria Paula Romo, accused of ordering the use of expired tear gas bombs during October's national strike in 2019. The trial will be held virtually due to the health emergency sparked by the COVID-19 pandemic. At the end of the reading of the report presented by the prosecution, the defendant will have 3 hours for her defense. This trial was promoted by Lourdes Cuesta, Roberto Gómez, and Amapola Naranjo after several failed attempts at the end of 2019. On its part, University Students' Unions demands the resignation of Interior Minister Maria Paula Romo for promoting a policy of repression against social organizations. In Bolivia, the InterAmerican Commission on Human Rights began investigations to research human rights violations before, during, and after the coup d'etat of November last year. Our correspondent, Freddy Morales, has the story.
Bolivia's Justice and Foreign Affairs Minister signed the agreement with the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, which will investigate human rights violations in the last 4 months of the past year.
To cooperate by knowing the truth about the serious events of violence that took place between the months of September and December of 2019, and equally important, to contribute to the development of a comprehensive compensation plan for those who were attacked.
The Bolivian government made the entire state departments and institutions available to the investigators so that the experts could carry out the intended mission within a period of 6 months.
On our part, they will have all the access and resources of the state so that their work is carried out in the best conditions. We will not intervene in any way.
After the movement towards socialism's resounding victory in the elections of October 18th, with over 55% of support, the right wing and its media, which sponsor and push the coup d'etat, intend to impose reconciliation.
To overcome the amount of hate that we have to face, a problem that could take time to solve, we have to be absolutely clear about that, and that in this process of reconciliation, we will have to put aside our positions, to stop the hate speech, to acknowledge mistakes.
Y que en ese transitar de la reconciliación
Social organizations and the People's Defender echo what families of the victims have been saying for a year.
It is a government of reconciliation, but that does not mean that the people, both the victims and the families, do not ask for justice.
We want a national meeting where impunity cannot be allowed, no peace agreement, no peacemaking process can be based on impunity, on the absence of responsibility for human rights violations.
In the process of destabilizing Evo Morales' administration that led to the coup d'etat, violent situations between political sides took place. This will be investigated by the International Commission, as well as the 37 murders in the massacres of Sacaba, Sencata, and other places during the de facto government of Yanin Áñez. Freddy Morales, TeleSUR, Bolivia.
And President Donald Trump said he no longer opposes government aid for Joe Biden's transition team in his closest statement yet to finally conceding he lost the U.S. election. Trump's tweet came after several and the General Services Administration's head, the Trump appointee Emily Murphy, said she was releasing the long-delayed assistance. In the last 3 weeks, Trump has been claiming without any evidence that Biden's victory was the result of fraud. Trump tweeted, "I want to thank Emily Murphy at GSA for her steadfast dedication and loyalty to our country. She has been harassed, threatened, and abused, and I do not want that to see this happen to her and her family or employees of GSA. Our case strongly continues. We will keep the good fight, and I believe we will prevail. Nevertheless, in the best interest of our country, I am recommending that Emily and her team to do what needs to be done with regard to initial protocols and have told my team to do the same." President-elect Joe Biden unveiled his nominations for his foreign policy and national security team, consisting of all colleagues from his years in the Obama administration. He is set to appoint Antony Blinken as Secretary of State and John Kerry as Climate Envoy, while Janet Yellen is typed to be the first female U.S. Treasury Secretary. The list of selections came ahead of an formal announcement Tuesday. Most of the appointments will require Senate confirmation. Meanwhile, the incumbent president said he has not conceded. Biden is leading in the popular vote by 6 billion votes and has amassed an overwhelming lead in the Electoral College, where he is expected to score 306 votes to Donald Trump's 232. The official outcome of the race will be known on December 14, when the Electoral College meets. And we'll go now to a short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Russia's Sputnik-V COVID-19 vaccine developers said it is 95% effective, according to a second interim analysis of clinical trial data. The two-dose vaccines will be available on international markets for less than $10 per dose and will be free for all Russian citizens.
Sputnik-V is the most accessible of the vaccines that are more than 90% effective in phase 3 clinical trials. We have already obtained industrial production of this vaccine in dry form, which will allow it to be used and distributed in temperatures between above 2 and 8 degrees Celsius. In this way, Sputnik-V will be one of the most accessible vaccines from the point of view of its distribution, transport and logistics.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met his Japanese counterpart Toshimitsu Motegi in Tokyo. Both foreign ministers are expected to discuss issues such as the coronavirus and climate change, among other challenges in the region is facing.
I'm really glad to visit Japan upon the invitation from my old friend Minister Toshimitsu Motegi. The coronavirus has spread all over the world and the global situation is also changing quickly. The world is now facing dramatic change. China and Japan are long-term regional partners, as you mentioned. We need to maintain timely and strategic dialogue. We are meeting here today, the first face-to-face meeting since the pandemic emerged, thanks to the efforts made by both sides.
Beijing accused Tuesday London of having a colonial mindset and double standards after Britain's government said it is considering reviewing a deal allowing its judges to sit on Hong Kong highest court.
Hong Kong has already returned to the motherland for 23 years, but the UK government is still misrepresenting the facts, making irresponsible remarks on Hong Kong affairs, and groundlessly criticizing China through the publication of the so-called biannual report on Hong Kong issues. We firmly oppose and strongly condemn this. The Chinese government's determination to implement one country, two systems uphold national sovereignty, security and development interests, and oppose external forces' interference in Hong Kong affairs. We urge the UK to abandon its colonial mindset, retract its hypocrisy and double standards, stop interfering in other countries' internal affairs, and soon return to the right track of international law and the basic principles of international relations.
The spokesperson also said China appreciated the positive comments on the Australia-China relations made by the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison.
China noticed PM Morrison's positive comments on the global impact of China's economic development and China's poverty alleviation drive. China will never waver from the path of peaceful development and throughout has supported developing friendly cooperative relations with other countries on a foundation of mutual respect, mutual benefit and equality. We also hope that countries can abandon ideological prejudices and follow the principles of the UN Charter and the basic norms of international relations and determine their own stance based on the rights and wrongs of the situation.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced Tuesday that the EU will sign a sixth contract for the upcoming coronavirus vaccine.
Can help and is crucial to end this pandemic, that we overcome this virus. And here I have today good news. I'm happy to announce that tomorrow we will approve a new contract to secure another COVID-19 vaccine in our vaccine portfolio. This contract allows us to buy up to 160 million doses of a vaccine produced by Moderna. According to the results of clinical trials, this vaccine could be highly effective against COVID-19.
Chamina Begums' appeal defense team made case at Supreme Court that requirements for procedural fairness cannot be overridden by national security and that their client did not have a fair and effective opportunity to present her appeal. Chamina Begums is a British-born woman who left the UK aged 15 to join ISIS. Her case has sparked controversy over the fate of people related with ISIS.
Impediments to Ms. Begum having a fair and effective opportunity to present her appeal are not peripheral to the appeal. They are absolutely central to her ability to have a meaningful opportunity to appeal, particularly where the presence of her explanations, her mitigations for alleged past actions, and her evidence on her present attitudes are likely to be, at the very least, significant elements.
And French authorities on Tuesday ordered an investigation into the forceful removal by police of a camp of migrants in central Paris that promoted outrage over the brutal tactics used. Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin said he had agreed to a proposal by the Paris police chief to immediately refer the issue to the National Police Inspectorate General, which investigates officers' conduct. The government is already facing a storm of criticism over new security legislation being debated in Parliament that opponents say will erode the accountability of the police. Officers used tear gas to break up the Paris camp, which was set up to protest against earlier evacuations of hundreds of migrants from other camps. Volunteers had helped erect about 500 blue tents at Republic Square that were quickly filled with migrants, the majority from Afghanistan. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres on Tuesday said he fears a winter spike in coronavirus cases could add further strain on the poor and insurrection-rocked nation of Afghanistan. Guterres spoke during a largely virtual pledging conference, the latest effort to drum up aid and support for a country where Taliban fighters are making inroads against the government. The gathering in Geneva, co-hosted by Finland, was expected to draw diplomats, civil society advocates, and international organizations from over 70 countries in the first such event in 4 years. The pledging conference, overshadowed in part by the COVID-19 pandemic, seeks to lay out objectives for the next 4 years for Afghanistan, is expected to generate billions for the poor and insurrection-rocked nation.
The redoubling of efforts towards an immediate unconditional ceasefire in order to save lives and prevent the further spread of COVID-19. This will create a conducive environment for the Afghanistan peace negotiations in Doha, a major opportunity to realize the long-held aspirations of the Afghan people. An inclusive process in which women, young people, and victims of conflict are meaningfully represented offers the best hope of sustainable peace. If we can link that with economic opportunity, then the prospects will be even higher. Today is an opportunity to work together towards that goal.
On Tuesday, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani urged the international community to continue supporting Afghanistan, even as he acknowledged that donors are likely to cut aid under the strain of COVID-19.
Our suffering. I want to be very clear that our commitments to negotiations with the Taliban remains firm. Our negotiating team remains steadfast in their commitment to talks in Doha. We must bring an end to the violence that is haunting our lives and robbing our children of the joys of childhood. We ask you, our international partners, to help us do more with less. Over the past several years, our population has changed. The capabilities and capacities of our people have developed. Our challenges have changed. Our access to resources have changed. So too, the approach to our partnership must evolve. The COVID-19 pandemic has thrown us all into a state of global uncertainty. We are forced to backbench development priorities and reallocate already limited resources to fighting the pandemic here. And we are still in the throes of it. A second wave and potentially a third could set us back again and again.
Ethiopia's government is again warning residents of the besieged capital of the embattled Tigray region as the clock ticks on a 72-hour ultimatum before a military assault, saying anything can happen. Human rights groups and others were alarmed over the weekends when Ethiopian military warned civilians in the Tigray capital, Mekele, that there will be no mercy if they don't save themselves before the offensive to flush out defiant regional leaders. Ethiopia's Nobel Peace Prize-winning Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed issued a 72-hour ultimatum for the leaders of the Tigray People's Liberation Front to surrender. Ethiopia's government is urging Mekele residents to separate themselves from the TPLF leaders.
The Mekele people would have a number of choices to collaborate with National Defense Forces to avoid any strike, because the slightest strike is a loss for us. Even if we hit one school, even if we hit one residence, even if we hit one road, it's a loss. So by collaborating, we can save the city and also one life, because now they are hiding out in a densely populated city. The slightest strike would end up losing lives or properties or sacred places.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also, if you feel so inclined, join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.